Welcome to this new edition of Reporters, and I'm sure you'll agree an exceptional one it is. This week, we head to Lebanon. Our reporters witnessed the celebration of the Muslim feast of Ashura for Shia Muslims. Ashura is the biggest religious event. It marks the massacre of the Imam Hussein over 1,300 years ago. The split between Shia and Sunni Muslims dates back to this time, and it gives an insight into the crisis that continues to this very day. This then, a unique report that takes you to the suburbs of southern Beirut, where Hezbollah calls the shots. Hezbollah, of course, close ally of Iran. And it's during these celebrations that often sees Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah make a public appearance. So, an exceptional report by Maïsa Awad and Maria Langlois for France 24.
على جسم الحسين سيوفهم.
It's a battle dating back 13 centuries. But for these believers, the wounds are still fresh. Every year, to commemorate Ashura, the world's Shia Muslims mourn the death of Imam Hussein, the Prophet Muhammad's grandson. Hussein and 72 of his family members were killed in the year 680 AD during the Battle of Karbala in modern-day Iraq. The schism between Sunni and minority Shia Muslims dates back to this period.
This great catastrophe will forever burn in our hearts. Our tears are not a sign of weakness, but of strength. As Shiites, we are strengthened by our values, our tears and our unity. We are anything but weak.
اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر أتى.
The Imam berates the Umayyad Caliph, victor of the Battle of Karbala. However, over time, many Sunnis have interpreted such words as a direct attack on their denomination. Today, against a backdrop of geopolitical tension, the division between the two largest branches of Islam continues to stoke conflict throughout the Middle East. But this religious leader calls for reconciliation.
The message of Hussein doesn't target anyone. It's an encouragement to rise up against injustice, nothing more.
So you refrain from using the word Sunni or Shiite?
Ideally, yes. We try to avoid using those terms. Some use religious divisions to stir up tension.
The Imam has tried to quell hostilities, but in this majority Shiite suburb of Beirut, politics and religion are inseparable. Here, Hezbollah, the party of God in Arabic, reigns. Every year during Ashura, Hezbollah supporters proclaim their loyalty towards the Islamic Republic of Iran, the de facto leader of the Shia world.
That's Hassan Nasrallah, symbol of resistance. The entire world knows who he is. And there, that's Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader, the Shia reference in Iran. For many in Lebanon, he's a guide, and we seek to follow in his path.
In the middle of the crowd flies the yellow flag of Hezbollah, Israel's sworn enemy. The party of God is backed by Iran. The United States and the European Union have designated its military wing a terrorist organization. Iran's influence here is conspicuous. Songs in Farsi, subtitled in Arabic, captivate the crowd. In southern Beirut, one of the most anticipated moments of Ashura has arrived. From a secret location, Hassan Nasrallah, Secretary General of Hezbollah, addresses the crowd. Nasrallah's followers see him as a direct descendant of Muhammad. Still, fearing a long list of enemies, he delivers his speech from an unknown location.
He's threatened by the Islamic State group, by Israel, obviously. He's just too important.
المشكل الحقيقي في المنطقة هي أمريكا. نحن أتباع وعشاق أبي عبد الله الحسين عليه السلام قاتلنا وعشنا بشعار هيهات من الذلة.
Southern Beirut is a Hezbollah stronghold. After it carried out a deadly attack across the Lebanese-Israeli border in 2006, Israel launched a vast military operation in Lebanon and bombed southern suburbs of the capital. But far from destroying Hezbollah, the Israeli offensive only strengthened the Shia militia. Deceased Hezbollah leaders are laid to rest in this cemetery in the heart of southern Beirut.
You told me he hadn't been buried immediately.
No, the Israelis had kept his body.
Ali and his fiancée Fatima are here to visit the grave of Hassan Nasrallah's son, killed in 1997 when the Israeli military occupied southern Lebanon.
Imam Hussein sacrificed his oldest son, and following in his footsteps, our leader, Hassan Nasrallah, sacrificed his son as well.
He was young, only 17 years old, and he died for us. If we're still here today and full of strength, it's undoubtedly thanks to Nasrallah and his son Hadi.
Imad Mughniya is yet another symbol for Hezbollah supporters. He reportedly spearheaded numerous attacks against Western forces in Lebanon in the 1980s, though Hezbollah never officially claimed responsibility for them.
After these attacks, the United States realized they were trapped in a quagmire, so they left the country. France, England, and the others were in the same situation. It's impossible to use the word terrorist to describe someone who defeated the Israeli army, who brought it to its knees. What, a terrorist? So fighting for our rights is terrorism? Well, that's total nonsense.
The remains of Hezbollah military leader Mustafa Badreddin also lie in this cemetery. Investigators for the Special Tribunal for Lebanon suspect he participated in the assassination of former Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri. Ashura celebrations last for 10 days. But they're not limited to the veneration of religious or political figures. The values of hospitality and generosity are at the forefront of the commemoration. Throughout southern Beirut, volunteers gather donations and distribute food to the needy.
I'm extremely happy. Everyone will walk away with something. Nobody leaves with empty hands.
Meanwhile, journalists at Al-Manar, Hezbollah's television channel, have mobilized all of their resources to cover the Shiite celebration.
When I see hundreds of people, some of whom are extremely poor, use what little they have to feed others, when I see people of all ages and nationalities raise their fists in honor of Imam Hussein, I feel it's my duty to show these images.
Al-Manar is broadcast in millions of households across the world, but not in the United States, where it too, like Hezbollah's military wing, is designated a terrorist organization. And accused of propagating anti-Semitic views, Al-Manar is banned in France.
It's surprising to see all these governments speak of neutrality. They say they support freedom of expression, then they judge me and prevent me from expressing my point of view. That's what I call political hypocrisy.
This man, who wanted to remain anonymous, accompanied us during the shoot as a security precaution. In 2006, Israel also bombed the channel's offices in Beirut.
We were hit with 7 airstrikes. Our headquarters were totally destroyed, even though a team of journalists was working inside at the time.
After an hour-long visit, we're politely escorted out.
You've just filmed in a place where no outside cameras have ever been allowed. You shot scenes that have never been filmed, so now I think it's time to leave.
For the Ashura celebrations, pro-Hezbollah volunteers distribute 1,500 meals per day.
Hezbollah feeds us, they protect us, and our dignity. The party learned how to defend our people and land from Imam Hussein. How dare they call us terrorists? The state doesn't give us anything. Everyone complains about that here. Our electricity and water are cut constantly. Everything is dirty. It's a mess. Sometimes I'm ashamed to be Lebanese because my country doesn't help me. But at the same time, I'm proud because at least someone is protecting me.
Afaf's family has not forgotten the 2006 war. Around 160 Israelis, mostly soldiers, were killed during the conflict. On the Lebanese side, more than 1,000 people were killed by Israeli strikes, the majority civilians, and nearly a third of the victims were children.
Everything was destroyed. I can't even find the words to describe it. The entire neighborhood was demolished. And do you really think it was the Lebanese government that rebuilt our suburb? Of course not. Iran rebuilt everything. May God bless them.
Her grandmother lost a son, Aitham, in the war with Israel. A few days later, she received a visit she'll never forget.
Someone came and knocked on the door. She told me Mr. Nasrallah was coming to give his condolences in 15 minutes. They'd secured the entire neighborhood.
We could all feel his greatness, his charisma. We could tell he was a man of value.
Don't judge me, but I'm proud that my son died a martyr, and I'm even prouder of having met Nasrallah.
Over the past few years, Hezbollah has increased its presence abroad, most notably in Syria. Several young fighters who perished in the neighboring country lie in this cemetery.
The smell of paradise is here.
In Syria, Hezbollah fights against Sunni rebels alongside the troops of Bashar al-Assad, Iran's main ally.
He fought against the Islamic State group in the al-Nusra Front. We come to see him almost every day. We spend the morning here, talk with him, and tell him about our lives. For us, a martyr is still living and hears us.
Shiite militias against Sunni militias. The rivalry opposing Iran and the Gulf countries has fueled the Syrian crisis since the very beginning. In Arab countries, many accuse Hezbollah of helping a brutal regime suppress a popular revolution. The party's supporters say Syrian rebels are not revolutionaries, but extremists, and they see fighting them as their duty.
My religious duty requires me to fight in Syria, southern Lebanon, and if necessary in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, or Yemen. It's normal to fight for the oppressed.
The 10th day of Ashura is the climax of the religious commemoration. It marks the end of the Battle of Karbala. In southern Beirut, Hezbollah holds its annual parade. They honor those who were injured in the war, though the conflict in Syria isn't openly spoken about.
We were all injured during battles with the jihadists. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Every year, the veteran Hussein al-Muqdad is honored as a hero. He was seriously injured in 1996 during a failed attack against Israel.
We made the promise that we would carry out an operation against Tel Aviv for every building that was destroyed in Beirut. If my brothers asked me to execute a new mission, I wouldn't hesitate for a minute, even in my current state.
The younger generation is ready. And to prove it, Hezbollah's Scout Brigade takes part in the parade. They've been preparing for this moment for months.
We go to the pool, we teach them to pray, we play football, learn about music, we teach them everything. And we take the occasion to teach them our doctrine and discipline as well.
Where's Haidar?
Their instructor, Mohammed, introduces us to one of his favorite protégés.
With our strength, we can fight the terrorists. We can fight anyone who threatens us. And thanks to our faith, we'll win all of the battles. My future is to become a martyr and to go to paradise. That's all that matters to me.
Let's go, children, let's go.
To commemorate the suffering of Hussein and his followers, they beat their chests in unison. The parade serves not only to galvanize Hezbollah's supporters, but also to discourage its enemies through a collective show of force.
They're exhausted, so they're a bit slow right now, but they've given all they've got.
At the end, the crowd converges on the so-called Master of Martyrs Plaza. And from his secret studio, Hassan Nasrallah energizes his supporters.
When Nasrallah speaks, we all light up. We all wait anxiously to see what will happen and what we'll be called to do. And as soon as he speaks, we feel calm again.
The event reaches its climax with Nasrallah's ominous announcement. Hezbollah and its allies now have a small majority in the Lebanese government. and the party has extended its influence to Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. While not all of Lebanon's Shiites support Hezbollah, the party has never been as powerful as it is today. Its rise sheds light on Iran's regional ambitions and on the awakening of Shia Muslims, who have been marginalized for centuries.
A report by Maisa Awad and Romeo Longwa. That's the end of this reporter's programme. See it again, of course, via our website, france24.com. You stay with us.